Hello and welcome to Guy Cocker's Video Games Podcast, episode 15 on the 12th of August 2013. I'm your host, Guy Cocker, and on this week's show I'm joined by two UK-based indie developers to talk about the week's news, address your feedback and give away some prizes. My first guest today is Tim Wicksteed, otherwise known as the one-man band indie studio Twice Circled. Tim recently released his first commercial title, Iron Age, a real-time strategy game for Android. Tim, thanks very much for joining me.
Happy to be here, thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about Iron Age. It's come out, it's on Android, free to play. How did it come about?
Right, well, saying I'm new to the scene is kind of an understatement. I started as a hobby project back when I was still working full-time as a mechanical engineer, if you could believe that. And, it kind of went well. I went through, 15 months of development part-time, and then beginning of this year I decided to go full-time, and another few months of development down the line, and I released it 2.5 weeks ago.
Good stuff, good stuff.
It's basically, to give a kind of quick intro to what the game's about, it's a space real-time strategy game available on Android devices, and it's about leading your tribe of giant floating space platform piloting nomads for a story of galactic conquest, believe it or not. It's kind of cool. It's this weird mishmash of genres and themes, and I think the easiest way to describe it, have you guys seen Firefly?
Yeah.
It's kind of like...
The TV series.
Yeah. It's kind of like that kind of grimy, steampunky feel with a kind of tribal element, like the Reavers in Firefly. Yeah. It's cool, and check it out if you're into strategy games and you've got an Android device.
Good stuff. My second guest is Cliff Harris, who is the one-man company that is Positech Games. Positech Games makes quirky and original strategy and simulation games, at least according to its website. And prior to that, he also worked as an AI programmer at Lionhead, where he worked on the movies. Cliff, thanks very much for coming on board.
Thanks for having me in. I've come all the way into the big city just for you.
Yeah, just for this. Well, and other stuff. But you're based in Somerset.
Wiltshire.
Apologies. Wiltshire.
Yeah.
So you're Bristol, Bath area.
I am out amongst sheep and cows and really bad internet. Yes.
So guys, you're both involved in mobile development and indie development and obviously life in general. Tell me about all those things and how it's going. Cliff, tell us what you're working on and some of your history in the games industry.
Oh God. I've been making games for hundreds of years now, basically. Although I started programming when I was 11, which is going back to 1981,
right,
which is kind of fun.
Guess your age from that, yeah?
You can, I'm 43. I've had all sorts of crazy, stupid, irrelevant careers. But I've been making indie games since about 1997, 98. And in between that, I went to work for Elixir and then Lionhead. And I quit Lionhead.
Right.
And I've been sort of indie full-time since then. And did games like Kudos, Democracy, Gratuitous Space Battles is the one everyone's heard of.
Yeah.
And Gratuitous Tank Battles. And now I'm doing Democracy 3. And I'm also sort of publishing a game by another indie called Redshirt.
Okay, so how does that work, if you don't mind me asking? Publishing another, yeah.
Someone else does all the work and I take all the credit.
That's amazing. How do I get into this?
Not really. I sort of wanted to release more games and sort of get involved in more games because the downside when you do everything, because I do all the code and everything, is that you only release a game every year or every 18 months, 2 years. So to sort of like keep things sort of ticking over in between that, I thought it would be good if I could publish a game by another developer. And I spoke to a few developers, and Mitu, who is basically another one-man studio, one-woman studio, is doing a kind of sci-fi social networking game called Redshirt.
Yeah.
And I'm involved in the sort of publishing side, the selling and the talking to sort of online portals and the business side and stuff like that, and she's actually making the game.
I'm aware of Mitu. I wrote half of Develop's Top 100 this year, and she was featured in that, and I wrote all about her game, Redshirt, which is... was it coming out this year, do we know, or is it...
It's coming out very soon. Well, it should be in beta. There's going to be a kind of you can pre-order it and get access to the beta just for the PC, although it will be on PC, Mac and iPad. But that will be in about a week and a bit.
Right, okay, so really soon.
Yeah, which is terrifying because it just.
What are you doing on this podcast? You should be.
I know. Well, not only that, my own game, Democracy 3, is going into exactly the same state about a week later.
Right.
So it's
all go. It's all hands on deck.
Chaos and mania for Positech games right now. Yeah,
And
they're meant to be a year apart, and they're the same week.
It's bound to happen, though, isn't it?
Yes.
Things are going to conspire against you, but it's to happen.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
Tim, what about yourself? What stage are you on? You launched your game a few weeks ago.
That's right.
So what's it like now?
So yeah, it's been a bit of a whirlwind. I kind of I'm using this kind of this anecdote at the moment. I think maybe releasing games is a little bit like having a baby. Right, before you shoot me down on this one, or before the women in the room tell me you do not know what it's like.
There's no women in the room. Maybe listening, but not here, unfortunately.
I kind of think, there's that thing where, you have a baby and then the second baby's a little bit easier. And the third one, you barely know it's alive, I think maybe the same with games. So I'm kind of going through that period where, it's like my baby. When it first came out, I couldn't sleep because I wanted to check out how the downloads were doing, check out what people were saying about it. It's like, what did you say about my baby? My game is the coolest game there is, And so yeah, lots of ups and downs, but it's a kind of it's once in a lifetime experience releasing your first game, and so I'm just living it, it's cool.
You mentioned we met up before recording the podcast, you were mentioning that someone had done a Let's Play on YouTube and you were very excited about that.
Yeah.
That your baby had been someone was playing it and videoing it as well.
That's it. I mean, it's kind of, I've been a gamer for all my life and, I've watched lots of Let's Plays and it's just a very bizarre feeling when you kind of suddenly you're on the other side of that. It's like someone's doing a Let's Play about my game.
Right. Is that the modern, is that it? You've made it now as a developer. If you get your Let's Play, I'll be interested to talk to the developers about this.
I would certainly not say I've made it, but no, I mean I think it's nice. It shows a certain engagement, doesn't it, from the community? It shows that people are interested in what you're doing, and it's let's face it, there's a certain amount of validation. People validating your ideas and saying I like this game enough to do a Let's Play. Well,
on one hand, as someone who is uploading video myself a lot at the moment, it's easier than ever to make video, capture video and process video. But there's also still a process where someone's got to sit down and set up a microphone, voice over it, and then not only that, encode it and then upload it to YouTube. It's a fairly involved process.
Well, definitely. I mean, and we were talking a bit earlier. It's actually very difficult to do a Let's Play for an Android game.
Sure.
And the guy went to the bother of downloading this program called BlueStacks, which is an emulator for Android, and then using Fraps to record over the top of it. And BlueStacks is like it's great, but it's really buggy and difficult to work with. So the fact that this guy went to all that bother in my game, when there's countless indie kind of PC games that he could have done a Let's Play of much easier, I don't know. I thought that was quite the compliment.
So Tim, you've released your game now. It's been out for a couple of weeks. What's next for you? I mean, have you got any ideas where you go next to other platforms? Is there a sequel? What's the plan?
Right, well, I mean, there's already been loads of updates, but none of these are kind of new features yet. It's just been lots of bug fixes. But obviously, I have some proper updates in the pipeline. I've kind of been getting the feedback from the community, and there's a few features I'd like to add. Perhaps I think multiplayer is where Iron Age could be really strong, and also perhaps like an endless mode.
It's just predominantly single player at the moment, just single player.
Exactly, yeah. It's predominantly a kind of just a linear kind of campaign at the moment, and I think those things could work work best if the game was cross-platform. So I'm certainly going to look at taking it to other platforms.
And how difficult is it to do that? I mean, and why do you go for Android first? Because that's, no offense, that's kind of the opposite way of a lot of developers.
Well,
iOS first, then Android.
I mean, yeah, it was a kind of decision that I didn't really make. It wasn't a business decision for me. It was something that I kind of fell into because I started the game as a hobby project.
Right.
And at the time, I'm pretty sure so many people were in the same position. I had an Android device and I had a PC, as in not a Mac.
Right.
Which makes it difficult to develop for iOS. And
well, crucially for people out there, you need a Mac to develop for iOS.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly right. And so, it was a hobby project. I wasn't going to invest lots of money in this, so I just started making the game. And then, however many months went down the line, I really got into it, and I started to realise, man, I want to do this for a living.
Right.
And, I had this game which was, pretty, maybe 90% done or whatever. Where
oh, wow, okay.
That 10% polish takes a while, as they always say.
The other 90%.
Yeah, the other 90%. And so, and here we are. The rest is history, as they say. So it was funny. I kind of fell into the Android market. I think Android gaming is getting bigger and bigger, but obviously it'd be ideal to take it cross-platform.
Sure.
One of the things I'm kind of thinking about is I had to go on an Ouya a couple of weeks ago,
right.
And where I think the Ouya is really strong is is multiplayer gaming, kind of gathered around the TV, kind of like in the good old days. And yeah, I played a game, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later actually in the show, but called Towerfall, which...
Which is the best game on there, probably, I think, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And yes, I love the idea of maybe taking Iron Age to Ouya, because it's Android platform, and having a kind of shared screen experience.
I think you'll get some, positive press from doing that, because there's about 200 games on there right now, so any good games that get on there are going to be picked up. But there is this story out there, I think I covered it a couple of weeks ago, where games just aren't selling on there, unfortunately. It's like, I forget the exact statistic, but it was something like only 30% of Ouya owners have actually paid for anything. So there is that to contend with.
You have a talent for picking doomed platforms that nobody's ever going to spend money on.
That's a controversial view.
Android may not be a doomed platform, but it is as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, more difficult to make money.
Yeah.
People spend less on Android than iOS, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the case.
But you've got nothing to compare it with right now, because it's your first game on Android, so...
That's right, yeah. I think for me, the Ouya thing is just... I'm almost doing that as a passion project, because I just think it would be really awesome on there.
Cool.
Because I've written it natively in Java for Android,
sure.
and that actually means the conversion time. I might be able to do it in a weekend.
Right. Oh, you should definitely do it.
Shouldn't make promises when I'm being recorded.
It's going to be like the end of next year, finally, the Ouya version comes.
I know.
It sounds like if you can do it that quickly, then it's a no-brainer. You definitely get it on there. But I'm interested because you're the first other person that I've spoken to since doing the podcast that has actually played with the Ouya. I reviewed it for a number of outlets and said, it's got potential. Right now, it's quite interesting if you're interested, if you approach it with the same mentality you might approach the Raspberry Pi, where you can play around with it, maybe do a little bit of side loading, some software hacking, or whatever you want to do. Even the emulation stuff is interesting, but. With the Ouya, what do you think about it? In general, as a console, have you got one personally?
I haven't got one personally.
You borrowed it from
I just played a friend.
So even you don't have one, and you want to port to it?
I literally, just for my own enjoyment. I just want to be able to play Iron Age.
Sadistic man wants to port stuff for his enjoyment.
I don't know. But I think it's got potential. I think think it's kind of sad. I mean, I don't know if you actually heard Amazon. I think this is right. I think they're going to make a kind of competitor, it sounds like, an Android-based console.
An Android-based console, yeah.
And I think that sounds kind of sad for the Ouya guys, because they're kind of only just getting started, and I wonder if Amazon might just kind of roll over them, but who knows.
It's the sad, brutal reality of the commercial world we live in, where if it's a cool device, then someone bigger will kind of take that success and make it their own. But Amazon apparently are looking into doing this device. I think if Amazon releases it, I would think it would be a general set-top box that plays, obviously will allow you to order stuff from Amazon. We'll probably play things from... I don't have a Kindle, but we'll play stuff from Love Film and their other partners that they've got, and Amazon Cloud stuff. But so did you like the console? I had a real problem with the controller. The controller is it's not ideal. Yeah.
I don't know.
Felt cheap and plasticky.
I'm not sure if I used an official controller or not. I thought it was really similar to an Xbox 360 pad.
It is. It might be me just nitpicking, but the triggers in particular.
Yeah.
And I've played with both the early backer model, which I borrowed from a guy called Tim, who runs Big Red Barrel. So thanks to Tim for lending it to me. The triggers on that were very sticky, and I've just got the retail unit from Ouya. They've improved it a little bit. I mean, the great thing is you can plug in any controller. You can plug in an Xbox, or you can connect to a PlayStation 3 one if you want. But it's got a lot of potential as a machine, and the store's getting better. It's just the controller. I couldn't be doing it. Couldn't deal with it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Maybe I'm nitpicking. Cliff, have you played with Ouya? Any? I think I know the answer to this. Any interest in Ouya games?
I feel like I've just walked out of the jungle and from 30 years ago, and people have this strange language where they talk about
Ouya
formats and gadgets. I didn't even know how it was pronounced. I just see it occasionally. And no, I don't play consoles at all. The only console I have ever owned is an Intellivision.
Really? So that was, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Although I did play a lot of Sega Mega Drive stuff. Right. Oh no, that's not true. I bought the Wii.
The Wii.
Wii. Which isn't a proper console, is it?
Why is it not a proper console?
Like retirement home.
It's an older person's console.
Which I did get quite into. I thought it was quite good fun. But no, I knew nothing about.
So your games are just PC. Although Mitch's games, is that Android and iOS?
That's going to be on iPad and Mac, and my games do get ported to Mac and Linux, but although I do actually have a Mac, it's nothing to do with me. Other people do the ports, mainly because I'm a proper kind of like hardcore PC developer that uses DirectX.
Yeah, okay. So you're really into Microsoft.
Yeah, I love Microsoft.
Love Microsoft. I've never heard that on the podcast.
Well, no, I know DirectX very, very well. I know DirectX 9,
right,
which is all I need, very, very, very well. So if I didn't, I wouldn't start there. You know, I'm a C++ DirectX guy, but if I was starting now, I'd probably be Java and OpenGL because of the cross-platform stuff. But as it happens, historically, I'm not. So I'm just locked into a world of PCs. And I know little of these new gadgets of which you speak.
So Udia and all this stuff is like a foreign language.
It is. I don't know what you're talking about.
So you were saying again, I think before we met, that PC is the platform to be making money from.
Well, I'm not sure I want everyone to know that. Well, it depends. I mean, like we were saying, everyone I know that's making mobile games doesn't make any money at all, and it's a complete car crash. Apart from one guy I know that makes like $1 million a year from it, and it seems to be a little bit.
And that's
like
Tim. He's just rolling with it
on Android. He makes the entire games industry sell to Android. And I'm a bit wary of that because it seems a little bit too lucky dip. Whereas on PC, you've got people that are making no money, you've got people who are scratching a living, people who are doing pretty well, and then you've got Notch and Minecraft and stuff like that. And he's
doing all right, I hear.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's scraping by. So it's much more open, and there's a lot more kind of freedom and sort of potential and possibility for indie developers to kind of do okay, even if you're unlucky.
Right.
I'm quite pessimistic, and I always assume that everyone will hate me and turn me down. And in that case, can I still make a living? And on mobile, I don't think you can. But on PC, you can just beg and grovel for people to come to your website and give you money, and they do.
I'm going to paraphrase someone that I spoke to earlier on an earlier podcast from the mobile development scene. His name is Barry Mead, and he made The Room for iPad. And he says, and again I'm paraphrasing, but he said at the Develop Conference, which is a session that I hosted with him, that there is this concern that even if you make a great game for Android or iOS, it will get lost, and he very much disagrees with that. He says if you make a great game, it will get found. People will find it, and people will flock to it. So that people shouldn't worry about like nailing that marketing or trying to find the perfect storm of what what appeals to people right now. I guess Candy Crush or trying to recapture that magic. He says make a great game and it will be found.
I controversially disagree.
Okay.
I don't know who this guy is, but he's wrong. The thing is, you only hear from people talking about these things, and on podcasts and on big websites and everything. The people that you hear talking about it are the people who have made a success of it.
Sure.
Well, you never interview the people who, why would you? Who made a great game but it got completely ignored. Because by definition they're completely ignored. There's a kind of like confirmation bias of success. I know some people making great games that don't do as well as they should. I'm very sort of pessimistic and paranoid about the industry, which is how I've survived.
Right. Well, that makes sense, yeah.
But I don't think it's as simple as that. I don't think if you make a great game, you'll necessarily do really well. We all know awful games that get loads of publicity and seem to sell a lot of copies. I'd love to
do you have any examples in that?
No, well, I don't want to give them oxygen of publicity.
Fair enough.
Just to throw my views into this, because obviously it's still pretty early on with Iron Age, but to a certain extent I'd agree with what Barry Mead was saying.
No, you're wrong.
With that, I wouldn't class Iron Age as a success by any means yet, but I'm not doing very well on the listings. For example, I think I peaked at about 180 on the new and free listing. I don't know if you're familiar with the Google Play Store, but there's free and paid, and there's new free and new paid. And to be in the new categories, you need to have released your game within the last 30 days. So this is your best chance of getting to the top of the charts.
Sure.
So I peaked at about 180, and it's funny because I've kept getting downloads, but then I just started to drop away again because it's all about the rate at which you're getting downloads.
Right.
But I'm still getting downloads. I'm actually getting more. In the last week, it's not this kind of. I think if you're an indie developer, I certainly was afraid of this. You're terrified of this massive peak. You're terrified you release your game, you get this peak, well, maybe it's not massive, that's the problem. But then you get nothing after for the following months. Well, funnily enough, with me, I'm getting more of like a wedge. So it started off small, and it's just growing over the time. And that's not through me having a high pay listing or kind of loads and loads of promotional budget. That's just, hopefully a bit of people sharing it,
so word of mouth. Yeah.
Word of mouth, there we go. And I obviously, I'm doing some kind of promotional efforts. I've got some reviews and that sort of thing.
Sure. And Let's Plays, and you're on the podcast.
And I'm on the podcast,
right.
One of the best podcasts in the UK.
Stop flashing. No, keep going.
So yeah, that's just my experience so far. I mean, in a month I'll probably be embittered and, suicidal.
You wait until you've done it for 30 years.
There we go. That's the key.
I'll get back to you.
So you've not. I mean, do you understand? I mean, as a developer releasing your first game, how those. I mean, we talk a lot about the App Store and the mysterious process by which there's a ritual and you have to go and meet Apple and have a sacrifice to the gods and you get on the front of the store. But with Google, is it slightly different? I mean, to give you an example of the podcast, when I first released that went straight up to the charts, and now it's sort of it's in the top 10, but it's it doesn't. The algorithms behind the chart placings are a mysterious science.
That's still the case, and Google's feature system is also incredibly mysterious. There is this checklist that any fledgling indie or Android developer, I should say, should be aware of. There's this checklist which is basically that if you fail any of these things, you will not get featured. It's not a guarantee to be featured.
Sure.
But this is where to start. Iron Age hasn't been featured, so I'm either failing one of these things or the game's not quite right in some way.
Okay.
But they don't tell you.
They don't give you feedback on that.
And that is tricky.
What sort of things are they? What's on the checklist?
The checklist is kind of, to use kind of technical term, it's kind of user experience stuff, which it's kind of. It mustn't be out of place on the Android ecosystem,
right?
In kind of quotes, and that's things like there's a back button on Android devices, and you must use that back button properly. So if you press back enough times, it should quit the game. It shouldn't. You shouldn't get stuck in it. Things like this. But so it's very difficult to know.
Just make sure your game works, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay. Yeah, but what's interesting is I don't think it's the be all or end all. I think it helps an awful lot. But and I'm not doing financially well by any stretch of the means, but stretch of the word. But like I am I'm getting downloads, and somehow, even without all that kind of star and glitter that you kind of think you need to kind of do anything on Android.
Well, I'm interested. I think Cliff's raised an interesting point there. If you are a mobile developer who's had a massive failure and fancy a free therapy session and want to come and talk to me about it, I think it would be an interesting podcast about someone who feels they made a really good game and it just hasn't succeeded for whatever reason. Yeah, I'd love to hear that as well. So Cliff, what's next? What's next for you? I mean, you said you've got your game coming out in a couple of weeks, and then you're publishing Mitty's game in a couple of weeks.
Well, yeah.
How's that process work these days? You're going through Steam, I presume, on PC.
I am.
Yeah.
But that upsets me. That does.
Why?
Not that I love Steam, but it's just that here we are, two indie developers, and I'm about to sort of talk about my game, and will it be on Steam? Obviously, and yes, it will, and we're completely dependent on Steam to that extent. In the same way that as an indie developer, you've got this checklist of people telling you how to make a game, kind of thing.
Totally.
And it's not as indie as we'd like to think. And I'm very lucky because I've got two games coming out. I've got a game that I actually developed, which is Democracy 3, and then there's this game by another developer that I'm publishing, which is Red Shirt. And let me just mentally check. Yes, they've both been approved by Steam. I've got so much going on that I kind of lose track. But I've got other games on Steam. Gratuitous Space Battles and Gratuitous Tank Battles on Steam, and Democracy 2 is on Steam. So it's not that difficult for me, but it's really hard to get an indie game on Steam.
Right.
And again, it's like that confirmation bias thing that you only hear from the developers that are on Steam, and it's like, yeah, we made millions of dollars and bought a Ferrari and all that. But you hardly ever hear from the developers that get rejected by Steam and then have to sell their house and their car and their lungs and everything.
Yeah.
What do you think of Steam Greenlight? Because it seems
it's
like
shit.
It's suddenly got much harder to get on Steam. Or maybe I don't. Is that the case? Is it harder because now you have to have all these people who basically greenlight you? You have to have this fan base before you even or can get on Steam to get a fan base. It's
I hate.
Why is it bad, Cliff? Why, to use it.
Controversial opinions.
No, I like it.
It's bad because if you look at games on Steam before Greenlight came along, there's the occasional kind of oddball, crazy game. But if you look at the kind of crowd that take the time to vote games up and down on Greenlight, it is a specific. It's what it is basically, I think, that the sort of time-rich, maybe cash-poor,
Right.
kids, basically, and there's nothing wrong with time-rich, cash-poor kids. That's fine, and they're obviously a big chunk of the market, but they're not the only chunk. Right. So, for example, there is a game called 7 Grand Steps, which has nothing to do with me, but I've met the developer, which is very unorthodox and strange, and looks kind of weird and a bit freaky, and it's a bit complicated and a strategy game. And it's not the sort of game that would have everybody cheering about it on Greenlight because it's not a sort of hip top-down zombie game with all that kind of stuff that it's very popular on Greenlight.
Sure.
And it is on Steam, I should point out. But it absolutely deserves to be on Steam. And the thing is, it just doesn't appeal to that demographic. And I don't like Greenlight because it's saying these group of incredibly cliquey young kids decide who gets in. But Steam know that. I mean, my games didn't go through Greenlight; they just okayed them anyway.
Right. Okay. So you just bypass Greenlight and just go to Steam directly.
Yeah.
Is that possible for someone who hasn't got a back catalogue?
Only for me.
You get a special keys for getting Game Viewers number.
There's quite a few people have bypassed Greenlight, but I don't know anyone who's bypassed it with their first game. So I think what Greenlight is there for. I'm speaking on behalf of Valve now. This is awful.
Well, you're not from Valve.
No, I'm not. No, I think it's there because, frankly, Valve were getting bombarded by kids. My first app.
Yeah.
Please put my game on Steam. It's great.
Yeah.
And this is a way of avoiding them having to send rejection letters and spotting stuff that they completely missed.
Yeah.
But I think if you make a really good game and it's got decent press and they actually think it will sell and it's got good production values, and you email Steam, then they'll okay it. Awesome. But I don't know. I only know my own experience. But I don't think they're happy with Greenlight either. I don't think Valve like it.
Really?
I thought. Oh my god! I thought it was common knowledge.
Well, I don't think anyone from Valve is out there saying to journalists, "Oh, we don't really rate that Greenlight thing."
They know it's got a lot of problems. I think they know it's got the problem that I'm saying that it is a particular group of people.
It makes sense, right? I mean, great to throw it out and crowdsource it or whatever you want to call it. And have that element to it, and yes, I'm sure. There's been great games that have gone through on Greenlight.
Definitely.
But like anything else, it's going to be a niche of people on there that have a certain taste and have a certain aesthetic, like you say, that they want to see. And every game that they want to see is probably some either Minecrafty 8-bit looking game or something with zombies in. That just makes sense.
Yeah. I think it's a problem, and they know it's a problem. But games, loads of games are getting approved on Steam that aren't going through Greenlight when they can see that there's clear potential for And of course, it's only the indie games that we're ever getting pointed towards it.
Sure.
Next Call of Duty game won't be on
Greenlight. What about Humble Bundle? You've been on Humble Bundle.
I have. Yeah,
You've featured on it, and it's seen as after. I mean, I think it just sort of came to light when I spoke to Mike Bithell about, and we'll talk about his new game later. But he was saying, when Thomas was alone on there, just incredible success. Literally overnight. Hundreds of thousands of pounds in his account. I don't know quite whether that's true or not, but that's the story.
Yeah. I was in Humble Bundle 4, I think, with Gratuitous Space Battles.
By the way, I'm sorry, I've gone into the financials. That's the most boring part of the games industry, but I
everyone always talks to me about money.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Cliff's on, ask him about money.
But is it like that? Is it like rags to riches?
Well, the thing is, people. I mean, yeah. No, it's not rags to riches. It can be. Yeah, I was in the Humble Bundle 4, and I was in this weekly sale about 2 weeks ago, a week ago. It's a very compressed amount of time where suddenly a huge amount of money shows up. So I think I got $160,000 or something like that from the Humble Bundle 4. Yeah, which sounds, you sort of think, wow. But of course, if you work for a year and a half to make the game, if a big chunk of that money comes in through that, and I could rapidly get boring, but $160,000 is only actually £100,000. You take off 20% corporation tax is £80,000.
Yeah.
If you take off income tax, blah 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 blah, and you take off the cost of making the game, advertising,
No,
blah,
absolutely.
blah, blah.
It sounds like a lot, but it's actually. It'll keep you going, but it's not. It's not enough to go and get that.
Yeah, it's still
Bermuda apartment.
No, it's still better than
better than kicking a teeth.
Better than working as a coder in the mainstream industry.
Sure, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is weird because all the money comes because you can sit there and click F5 and see huge amounts of money going up.
You're like, oh my god.
And like anyone, I immediately extrapolate and say if it carries on at this rate, by next month I'll be richer than Bill Gates. But obviously then it all dies out within a few hours.
So this was Democracy 2 that was featured?
No, this Gratuitous Space Battles was in the Humble Bundle, and then there was like a Positech Humble weekly sale last week or the week before, and that's a lot less. That's like $70,000 or something.
Yeah,
like
sure.
That. But it's all good.
You like that. You like that exposure. You kind of. It's good to be in a Humble Bundle, basically.
It is. But the average price paid is pretty low. And I do very complicated strategy games that people are generally prepared to pay a higher price for.
Right.
So
yeah.
they're normally like $20, $24. The next game that I've developed that I'm releasing is Democracy 3, and that would be $24.99. And it will sell at that. I know it will sell at that.
Sure.
So, if in a year or two people say, do you want to put that in a Humble Bundle? I might say, yeah, maybe, but certainly not for a year.
Sure.
Because it doesn't need to, and people are prepared to buy a game at full price. There's a bit of a myth, I think, amongst indies on PC that all of the money is made in the Steam sale, or all the money is made when you price your game at 95% off.
Right.
But I found that that's just not true.
Right.
Most people get it then, but a lot of them don't even install it.
Right.
It's mental.
And the thing is, then you need 20, 30 times more
Yeah.
downloads for the same amount of
Sure.
money. So even though loads of people, 10 times more people are downloading it, wow, but actually that's still less money.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you can get everyone to buy your game at full price and you can price your game at $24.99.
Is there a case of...
It just sounds like fantasy land. $24.99.
Iron Age is free to play.
Is there a case, and this will be a nice question on money, on the monetary side, the business side, but is there a case of, if you get someone to play your previous game, for example, and they pay essentially $1 for it in a Humble Bundle, that they're then a potential customer for the sequel at full price, or are they then is their value system so eroded that they're going to wait for the next sale on?
I think there is a real danger of that.
Yeah,
I think
it's the iOS thing again. Isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is quite worrying, and the thing is, people forget the same amount of money has to be generated by the industry to create the amount of entertainment that people want the industry to create. So the money will flow in one way or another. So whether or not it's everyone just doing what we used to do and pay $20 or $30 for a game, or whether or not it's getting the game for free but having to buy ammunition and spending like $30, or whether it's never ever paying for the game, but some crazy guy who's addicted and is spending $600 a month on buying magic pebbles and something like and there's loads of other variations of that, because of course there's Kickstarter with people saying this game is amazing even though it's not even finished. Here's loads of money up front. There's loads of different ways of doing it, but there is no free lunch out there.
Yeah.
And personally, I'm sort of old school enough that I like the idea of saying, here's a game, I think it's worth $25. If you like the look of it, give me $25, and then
if not, then
and
don't play it.
And then we have a gentleman's agreement. I've provided you with entertainment, and you're providing me with funds, and it hasn't got any more psychological or complicated.
It's a really interesting thing. You're right. I mean, how it's diverged so much in the way people pay for things, essentially. And I think it's all connected. It's like Spotify. You pay a monthly fee, and you can consume as much music as you want, or and it's through all medias. I guess it's because of digital distribution. It's kind of changed things. You're no longer paying for physical products, but yeah, I mean, there's just, like you say, there's so many ways people pay for stuff. Kickstarter, free to play, premium,
Well, moving on from financial discussions, what if you can give me one thing, or maybe if you've got a couple, what are you most excited about in gaming at the moment? It's a big year, new consoles, new technologies coming out all the time. Is there anything that you're kind of personally excited about at the moment?
Oh dear, that's a fighting
No,
question.
shall I go with Tim first? Tim's the young, optimistic one, so let's go.
Oh God.
Maybe not.
It's exciting. Well, I mean, I don't know.
Put you off guard.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people I speak to, Oculus Rift is a big one. I mean, the rise of Android consoles is kind of an interesting one, if not
Definitely
quite
not
a-
Oculus Rift.
Not Oculus Rift.
Oh, okay, well, here's a nice, more controversial opinion. I love this. I had a go on an Oculus Rift a couple of months ago, and I was blown away. Okay, I'm not a fan of these gimmicky things. The Wii I thought was fun. Okay, like it was kind of interesting, new user input, and I've had a go on a 3D game. I played, I think, Halo on a 3D TV,
3D, okay.
which was kind of fun for a bit, and then it hurt my eyes. But Oculus Rift, there was something really special about it.
What did you play on it?
I played a little space, a really simple space game on it, where you're in the cockpit,
Yeah,
flying
that'd be
around.
EVR. I think I played as well. Yeah.
Okay.
It's from the guys that made it Online. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Wow.
Yeah. The guys are nice and.
I mean, this is a bit of... 'cause, I mean, lots of people won't have had a chance to play on an Oculus Rift, and I want to kind of dispel a myth here, which I wasn't aware of. It's not dispel a myth, but tell you something that I wasn't aware of beforehand, which is it's got these sensors, so it actually detects when your head moves. Now, I didn't realise this. See, I thought it was just 3D on a VR headset, but the fact that the sensors so accurately pick up your own movements suddenly just create this new layer of immersion. And you can imagine me sitting in this cockpit in this spaceship, and I'm dogfighting. I'm on the tail of another space fighter, and it pulls up to kind of to the top and the right. And instead of just kind of moving my analog sticks to kind of follow it in my field of vision, I actually switch and look up and follow it with my head, and it just moves. And you're actually in this cockpit. You can actually look around behind you, and you can look at the whole of the cockpit. And
it's a small thing. It's that one thing makes it much more immersive. But you have that feeling when if you're watching Star Wars, the film, and like they're tracking the pilots and everyone else in that field of space. I'm struggling to describe it here, but if you move your head around, you feel much more immersed rather than, like you say, having to move the joysticks.
That's it. So I'm excited about that. There we go. You kind of gave me an answer.
Oculus Rift.
It's true.
You hate Oculus Rift.
Well, no, so she just makes me sound like a right miserable old son.
No,
I've never tried it. In my defence, the reason I go is I'm stereo blind, so
Right.
I can't see.
You can't enjoy it.
I can't see 3D movies, and whenever it's been at some show that I'm at, there's been a huge queue of people, and I thought if someone just came up and said, "Do you want to try it?" I'd say yes.
You give it a go and see if it was. To describe what that means. You just can't.
I'm only ever
see
looking
that.
out of one eye at a time, which I didn't realise until 3D came back in.
Right.
And of course I can't see it, and then you can sort of do some tests and realise that you're not actually. I also can't see through binoculars.
Because I was talking to someone emailed in about colour blindness as well, and how that's a real problem in a lot of games.
Yeah. It is. Stereo blindness is probably the new
colour blindness.
the new colour blindness.
2013 colour blindness.
I'm sort of 95% stereo blind. So when I went to see Avatar.
Yeah.
I can see occasionally. I see a little thing. I thought, oh, that's almost slightly 3D,
Right.
and
And
everyone
the rest
else
of
is
it's
going,
just-
whoa! But to me, it's just blurry and dark.
Right.
So it's actually worse.
To a lot of people, it's like that. Whether they've got vision problems or not, but
I would love Oculus Rift to be, amazing, but I have a horrible feeling it just won't work on me. So I kind of want it not to be, because if all games go that way, I won't be able to play
interesting
them.
to find. Have you googled whether it does? Presumably, it will affect you.
I would assume so.
Because it's essentially separate monitors for each eye, so it does work.
Yeah, but no, my brain edits it out.
Right.
If you I mean, obviously I'm looking through both eyes at once, but my brain picks one or the other.
Right.
Because if you catch me in the right light, you'll see I look very slightly cross-eyed.
Right.
And obviously I would bump into things if my brain just went through both. But if I look through binoculars, it looks like a telescope to me, and I can only look through one or the other. And in fact, I find it quite painful to look through binoculars.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, and that Oculus won't work or might not work for you. But I'm with Tim in terms of its potential. I played that exact demo at E3 a couple of months ago, and next week I'm going to play with I don't know what demo I'm going to experience, but I'm going to play the high def version they've just got now.
Nice.
Or I don't know if it's high def, but it's increased resolution.
I'd certainly say. It definitely needs some work. It's pretty
it's
low res.
basic. basic gameplay. But even a basic game in that experience is something else. It was best. I walked away. I was like, I want another go on that. It's even, it's only 5 minutes, but it blew everything else away. I have to say, E3. Okay, guys, we haven't really talked about where we can find out more about your games and what you're working on and all the rest of it. What's the best? Is it Twitter or website?
Oh, probably my website, which is www.positech.co.uk. But everyone online calls me Cliffski. If you search for Cliffski, that's me.
Cliffski, okay. And what about you, Tim?
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at TwiceCircled. Or if you want to find out more about my game Iron Age, that's spelled IONAGE. It's a bit of a tricky spelling, so you can go to ironage.co.uk, and that's got everything. It's got a trailer and a link to the game and everything.
Good stuff, and it's free to play, so it's just on the Play Store. Get involved.
It's no excuse. Yeah, give it a go.
No excuse. Before I've forgotten to thank. We're already 40 minutes into the show, and I've forgotten to thank Andy from Spilt Milk and Appy Nation as well. So I'm just looking through my notes. Appy Nation, who's lent us his office for today. So thanks very much for that, Andrew. So we're going to talk about this week's news and what's been happening in the gaming world, what releases are coming out this week. If you've got any thoughts about the show, please email podcast@guycocker.com. But let's talk about this week's competition. Okay, competition time. This week I have very kindly, thanks to the guys at Overkill, developer Overkill, they've offered me 4 copies of Payday 2 to give away on the PC, which is just coming out, I believe, today. So it's been reviewed very positively. The reviews are out there at the moment, so I'm really excited about playing it personally. So I've got 4 copies of the game to give away. If you want to win, all you need to do is email me the answer to this question. Which country and which city is the game developed in, and where are Overkill based? If you know the answer, please email it to podcast@guycocker.com, and I'll draw the winners whenever I get a chance on the podcast from Gamescom next week. Okay guys, let's talk about this week's feedback. I did loads of emails last week, so just one email this week from Eric Song. He says, "Hello Guy and his awesome mobile developers. Last time there was a mobile developer special, and I made the foolish assumption that Guy invited game developers for 3DS and PS Vita, not mobile phone developers. But I'll not make the same mistake again and want to go straight to questions. Why are some game apps country restricted? I'm not sure if anyone in the podcast experienced it, but I'm a South Korean and I occasionally play many mobile games from Korea. But the problem is, while I can just make a Korean account on iOS, I can't do the same for Android, and this annoys me because there are several Android exclusive titles which I'm dying to play, but can't because the games are restricted to South Korean account holders only. Is there a special reason, such as costs, why companies restrict apps by country, or do they just want to bully people like me?" Tim, you got an answer to this?
Yeah.
As an Android developer?
As an Android developer, I can hopefully give an explanation. It's not because we're trying to bully people. I can promise that.
You're just evil developer.
Are you sure?
Here's the thing. So
it's not just a little element of bullying.
It's really interesting because I've never thought this way round. I've made my game in English, and I'm thinking. Surely people who are native English speakers are going to want to play this. I don't want to give a bad user experience to people who live in other countries, and this English game pops up on their Spanish version of Google Play or their Korean version of Google Play. And essentially I think what's happening here is it's the same thing but in reverse. So you've got Korean developers who, the game's in Korean, they think no one in England or in the UK speaks Korean.
Right.
So basically they've not published it there. And actually so this sort of thing this happened to me, and a load of people got in touch, some guys from Israel and some guys from Singapore, where they speak lots of English, most of the games are in English anyway, and they're like, why isn't Iron Age available here? And so I decided just to release it everywhere, and I think actually that's what all developers should do, and let respect your user to go, okay, I don't want to play a game in not the language I speak,
right.
Instead of kind of putting this walled garden around your games. So that's the reason, and hopefully maybe get in touch with them, because people got in touch with me and I ended up releasing it.
So if there's a game you really want to play, it's pretty easy to get in touch with the developer and find out the developer on Google Play, I think.
Yeah, there's a button that says email the developer.
Yeah, so just get in touch with them. Is it? Presumably, it'd be a lot of money to translate it into Spanish and Italian, whatever.
Well, I don't know. Google Translate's not bad these days.
It's alright,
it is.
but it's not.
Yes, it is.
Maybe it is. I'm actually looking at maybe translating into Korean and Japanese, because these
that genre appeals to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Second question, which platform is easier to make? I don't know if either of you will be able to help with this, but I'll ask it anyway. He says, this is from Eric, he says, I'm not an expert in mobile OS, but the impression I get from Android and iOS is that Android is more open to app developers, while iOS has strict regulations to follow. Therefore, my gut feeling is that Android is easier to develop for. However, I once read an article of game developers in Korea, who said that making games for iOS is far better because while iOS only has a handful of devices to make for, Android has so many devices that vary in screen size and specifications, and it can be more buggy. What do you guys think? Do either of you have an opinion on this at all? I mean, iOS, there are lots of famous...
PC is the answer.
PC is the answer. That's a good answer from Clint. I mean, you can do what you like on PC, right? I mean, iOS has this long... I don't know if you really want to make a game that has explicit sexual references or swearing, but I believe that's a problem on iOS.
Which I think is ridiculous, frankly. I've never understood. I mean, I do games about politics, and I would just dread Apple saying, "Oh, you can legalise prostitution in your game," or the death penalty.
There's a lot of sex and violence and swearing in politics, isn't there?
Yeah, but I'm not making anything dodgy in the game. But the idea that someone that owns a platform, because these platforms are so huge and so all-encompassing, it's kind of like the book. Imagine if books were owned by Book Inc.
Waterstone or whatever.
Yeah, and they're saying, well, you can't put that in a book. That's our platform. It'd be ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
And I just think it's crazy. That's why I like the PC. Nobody can stop you making a game on
Nobody
PC.
can stop you from putting rampant pornography in your game.
Well, yeah, I don't, but I
You'd like to have the option.
Well, I just don't know where it ends because, if you're going to do a sort of game about, like Tablet Tycoon, where you've got the option to manufacture your tablets in a sweatshop in China, is that going to be approved by Apple? Probably not.
Probably not. No.
The minute you start banning anything that isn't, obviously illegal, just because you own a platform, I think it's really dodgy. That's one of the main reasons I'm a PC developer.
Right.
I don't like it at all.
That's interesting. Do you feel any restrictions as an Android developer in your strategy game, not being able to put certain content in?
I mean, not really. I mean, I think the thing here is that you're talking about the PC is very open. You can go through Steam if you want, but you don't have to. You can download. You can get a game from anywhere. Yeah. And I think the interesting thing here is, Apple and Google, they've got their stores. It's their storefronts that they're not letting you into. I guess it's an extra kind of thing with Apple that you can't sideload, can you, unless you jailbreak your phone. Whereas Android, you can actually. So it's only that they might not let you sell the game through their storefront with Android. You could actually put any game you want on if you wanted to, so it does have a bit more freedom. I mean, I don't think these things really... I'm reading the email, and I think I'd say to get started is really easy on Android. There's all the kind of libraries and kind of APKs to use not APKs, APIs to use the technical term.
Still learning.
Okay. They're all really easy to get hold of, and I just got started really quickly. Use this open source piece of software called Eclipse is the one they recommend, and it's just so kind of to get started is so easy. But there is a big but, and actually. Sorry, I kind of forgotten the name of the person who wrote in. Eric.
Yeah.
So Eric actually said in the question, Android has lots of devices, and that change in screen size and resolution actually makes it really, really difficult to finish your game on. Right. Because you can get it working on your device, no problem, and you design it for your device, and then you realise you've got just so many different devices out there.
With different memory and screen resolution.
Memory is one of the ones. Actually, that was one of the big bugs with Iron Age when it came out, was memory issues, and I just didn't realise that there was these devices that still have quite low memory limits, and so basically it's really backloaded, which is not really a good thing. It's easy to get started in prototype, but if you want, when you get to the end, it can be really kind of horrible. I mean, iOS, I think, also has its kind of has its issues. For one of them is that there's a review system. So to get onto the App Store, you need to put your app in a queue to review, and it would take kind of 2 weeks for some Apple guys to actually have a look at it, which isn't the case in Android. It can take a few hours to do an update. So I mean, I'm here. I've done 10 updates in the last 2 weeks, and I just wouldn't have been able to do that on Apple.
Just take too long to the approval processes.
Exactly. So pros and cons,
And so what? I don't think this is a question. This is Eric's final question. So if I've seen your mobile, you don't look like you're... you mentioned you were more into PC than mobile. I'm trying to phrase this in a way that doesn't offend you. You don't look like you're a sort of guy that's into the latest mobile phone.
No. I bought a new phone. I bought a new-ish phone just because I wanted to see what all the fuss was about. And for me, new was that it had a touch screen.
And a touch screen, right? So it's not like the latest iPhone, basically.
No, I'm just one of these people who is of that age where I don't need a smartphone. Frankly, I'm either always at home. I'm a bit of a workaholic, so I'm either always at home in front of a PC. But if I'm out, I want to completely forget about it.
Right.
I don't want to take a smartphone and be checking Twitter.
Be on it all the time.
And all that. I don't
right.
take PCs on holiday or anything. I just get completely away from it. So no, I don't game on mobile at all.
Well, to answer Eric's question, I think it's down to me and Tim. Who's currently winning in the smartphone market? He says, between Samsung and Apple, I have a Galaxy S3 Mini as well as an iPad 2, and I feel stuck in the middle ground between Apple and Samsung, essentially. Before the launch of the Galaxy S3, which I think was last year, I would have said that Apple was clearly the winner, but since the S3's launch, I've seen more people carrying Galaxies in the UK than iPhones, so I feel the tide is now in favour of Samsung. What do you think the reason is for this sudden change? Is it because people were disappointed with the iPhone 5, or is it because the S3 was so damn good? What have you got? What are you rocking? HTC?
I've got an HTC One S. That was the first smartphone I got, was an HTC Desire, and I've just stuck with HTC because
Sure.
I kind of I like them.
Is it good? You like the HTC?
I do, yeah. It just what everyone always says about this smartphone. It just works.
Sure.
I certainly like to think it competes with iPhones, but I've never had one, so it's
Right.
very hard for me to make the comparison. I think the reason that maybe Samsung might be just starting to kind of edge a little bit, certainly just if you just look at the numbers of devices, I'm not saying if it's a better phone, but
Sure.
the reason it might be getting more sales is it's just the price tag.
Sure.
I mean, it's offering a kind of similar spec.
Similar and sometimes exceeding spec,
That's
depending on which
right.
one. The S4, I think, in many.
Yeah, but it is, it's a fair bit cheaper, and I think a lot of people, if you're not, heavily into the kind of Apple thing, having a Mac and all these sort of things, you just don't mind. You'd be happy with an iPhone, but you'd also be happy with a Samsung, and so you kind of the price determines it.
Sure.
Don't you think that court case also helps when they basically... I mean, Apple, I think, sort of shot themselves in the foot saying...
From a PR perspective.
Your Samsung phones are so like ours, we're going to sue you. And everyone thought... And they're cheaper.
Yeah.
I had no idea they were quite as good,
I think I can... It's a weird one because as a sort of journalist, I get a lot of kit through for review. So I've been Apple because I've got an iPhone 5 and an iPad 2 an iPad Mini, in front of me. So I've had the iPhone for review, but I've actually been using the Samsung Galaxy Note 2 a little bit, and I'm about to get, because I'm reviewing some Android equipment, I'm about to get an Xperia Z tablet or Xperia Z, whatever the Sony tablet, and the latest HTC One. And I think actually I know it sounds bad because I get access to a lot of this stuff without having to pay for it, but it actually means that I can approach it without that sort of price, that element of it, and I'm starting to think I might move over to Android soon. I think.
Wow.
Yeah, they're just like, I don't know. Android seems to be like more exciting at the moment, and that idea of it being more open is a bit more. I don't know. It's a bit more appealing.
If you're techie, I think it appeals to the kind of the techie side to you.
Yeah.
It is open. If you wanted to, you could put a custom, ROM on it or whatever,
Right.
And
I probably never will.
You've got the option.
I've got the option. Yeah.
Don't you think it's just funny that in that sort of war, we're sort of saying that that's more open versus Apple, who want to control everything and be a big brother? Because if you go back to like years ago and their famous Super Bowl advert against IBM saying, evil IBM, and we're the young upstart,
We're the cool
free,
Californian,
open. And now it's gone full circle.
Absolutely. I don't know. I think as well the iPhone, the screen starting to look a little bit small and not as like the Android, the latest HTCs. They're really. I mean, the screens are huge without it feeling like a massive phone.
It's great. It's also a curse, just because for us developers, we've got to deal with all the different screen sizes.
Massively high res screen, so you've got to produce really great assets.
Yeah, and you've also got to have the low res assets for the the low end devices.
PC, never make a PC game then, because you're going from 1024 600 res to 2560 whatever in the same
4K
executable.
soon. Right.
Yeah.
Hey, we deal with that. I'm just saying.
Well, thanks for your email, Eric. Remember, you can get in touch with us on the show. It's podcast@guycocker.com. I'm also on Twitter if you want to hit me up on Guy Cocker. And there was something else that I was going to say. Oh yes, if I'm going to be out at Gamescom next week, so if you want me to put any questions to the developers and the journalists on the ground at Gamescom next week, then send them through to podcast@guycocker.com. Okay, time for this week's news section. I picked out the week's big and interesting news stories, all of which have just come in like hours before the podcast. So I'll ask my guests about them, what they think. So first up is an Xbox One special. A few news stories here guys, but one of them really stands out. The first one is Xbox One controller has 40 different improvements, and a new video discusses them from Major Nelson. He takes apart the controller. The second news story is that the Xbox One controller will be compatible with the PC, but not until 2014. And then the big one is Xbox One Connect does not need to be plugged in to the Xbox One console. This was from computervideogames.com, which is a big about-face, another one from Microsoft, because they said that originally that Kinect had to be connected at all time to the Xbox One for it to function. So what do you guys think? I mean, first of all, do you care? Because obviously a lot of people do. But what do you think? Is this another in a long series of about faces from Microsoft? And does it matter that Kinect doesn't need to be connected? I'll go to you first, Cliff, I think.
Thanks. I don't care because I won't get an Xbox because I'm not a console gamer. But I'm quite glad that they've realised what complete hash they've made of it.
Right.
Because as someone who's kind of a PC gamer and a PC developer and uses DirectX and blah blah blah, and actually quite likes Microsoft if the other choice is the other choice. I don't want them to completely implode. And it looked like they were completely losing the plot and just being run by monkeys at one point.
Right.
So I'm glad they've kind of seen a bit of sense about
Similar, like they've rebranded to I forgot what they were and what they've rebranded to. It was like the interactive services department to the game and other products. I can't remember.
It's just corporate hell, isn't it?
Is it? If you were going to go for any console, Cliff, would it be
It'll
the
be
Xbox?
Yeah, I did actually talk to people about doing an Xbox port at one point, but there's a whole level of bureaucracy and stupidity behind it.
I suppose with your strategy background as well. I mean, there are strategy games, great strategy games on Xbox. On Xbox 360, XCOM springs to mind. I don't know if you agree, but would you ever port democracy to it? I mean, would it make sense?
I don't think that. I think something like gratuitous space battles, because that on a TV looks really good. But to be honest, now with Steam Big Picture mode and sort of,
I've been using that a lot. Yeah, it's great. It's great.
Like, do you really need a console to do this sort of thing?
I'm with you. Last 6 months have been like transformative for me. I was a console gamer for many years. I mean, obviously would play some PC stuff, but in my own time it would be console. And I've got a computer in for review that you put. It's like a set-top box. You put it under your TV, and I think I probably would invest in one of those now rather than a new console.
But out of the sort of the consoles, if I was going to get involved in any of them, I think it would be PC. I think. Microsoft do get a bad rap, and obviously they occasionally do completely crazy things like Windows 8.
Yeah. What's your opinion on Windows 8?
I just bought a new laptop, and one of my criteria for buying it was that I could get a version without Windows.
Doesn't have Windows 8.
Yeah,
Windows 7.
I've got an iPad which I never use, and if I want a touchscreen interface I only ever use it to look at photos, holiday photos. I'm such an old man. But why would I want a touchscreen interface bolted onto my desk? There's enough crap bolted onto Windows that we don't use, like these days, like modem support and all that kind of nonsense, and fax machine support that's still sat there. That to bolt a whole new layer of like a sort of Fisher Price interface on top of it, I thought it was completely pointless. I think they should go further than all these sort of Xbox U-turns. They should just stand up and say, I don't know what we were thinking with Windows 8. We apologise. We're now working on Windows 9 and it will look like Windows 7. That's what I'd do if I was in charge.
That's the I see a lot of games though that do that. I mean, Splinter Cell I can actually talk about because I think the embargo breaks this afternoon. Well, they do it I think in football games as well. Splinter Cell, it went down a more action orientated approach, and then now it's back to stealth, and it's like they changed something so that they can change it back in the subsequent version. Yeah. So
it's crazy, isn't it?
What about you, Tim? Are you excited about Xbox One at all? What are your general feelings on Microsoft and the console space?
I mean, I don't begrudge them at all for kind of doing 180. I mean, some people have said that makes them look worse. I'm kind of with the feeling, if they made a mistake, then great if they reverse it. You know? And to be honest, I don't think any of this is going to hold them back in the final kind of console. I mean, like Sony's won the first round, but I think it's all that matters really when it comes out is going to be the launch titles and the games that come after, and I think that's what's going to sell it.
Price though, still that
fair
issue.
Point. Price is an issue. I mean, I've got to admit, if I was going to go for one or the other, and I'm not really a massive console gamer. I have a habit of buying consoles when the next one comes out.
So you just bought a PS3
I bought a PS2 when the PS3 came. Well, about a year after the PS3 came out, and I played all the old Final Fantasies because they were awesome. And I might buy a PS3 or an Xbox 360 when the new generation comes out. Right. But you know what? In 5 years' time, in the next
you'll get an Xbox One for 120 quid.
I'd probably go for the Sony one, the PS4.
Why are they calling it the Xbox One? Can someone explain to me why that makes
think about it, 360. What's next on the compass? The protractor.
Before a release, it was always 720.
It makes no sense.
No, because it goes round, doesn't it? 361.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
59, 360.
But I'm thinking about it from the point of view of some, grandmother that goes to buy a grandchild one at Christmas and say, I want the new Xbox. Oh, the Xbox One. No, the new one. I know they expect it to be called the Xbox 3 or something. Just why the Xbox?
I don't think they've ever said. They might have done in an interview. I don't think they've ever said it's Xbox One because X, Y, Z, but the sort of the reading of it from most people is that this is. I mean, it's kind of resetting the Xbox timeline, but the real thing is it's one box. It's one box for all your entertainment and everything. I mean, the weird thing.
I didn't get that.
Right.
They haven't put that across.
Well, it's another thing they're not communicated particularly well. But the thing that I find interesting about names in general, because when you're thinking of names, I'm sure you guys have it for your games. They are important, but they're also sometimes completely irrelevant. I mean, Wii was a strange title to begin with. Everyone took the mick out of that. Yeah. The PlayStation even is like. I mean, PlayStation actually makes sense, I guess.
It's like a Fisher Price.
But you say it. You probably say it once or twice a day, and you don't ever think about what the actual words mean. It's just
it's like Apple. Meaningless. I mean, the names end up kind of having their own meaning in themselves. Because instead of you thinking, oh, Apple, that's a fruit, or that's also the name of this company, it's just, this is Apple. And I think that's the thing with all these, that once you get used to it, 2 years down the line, Xbox One will just roll off the tongue.
Yeah, you won't think about it.
We say that, but some idiot in a marketing department probably charged $500,000 to come up with Xbox One.
Doing the wrong thing there.
He did a presentation explaining how it would be.
Not just one guy, teams of guys.
Oh yeah, with trendy glasses and stuff.
All they had to do was come up with which number. Do you know what I mean? They know they've got Xbox. They just have to decide which number.
At some point, it would have been Y box. You just, or Z box.
Yeah, well, you put yourself in a difficult position, don't you, with this? Because, like Tim was saying, Xbox 360. I think when they named it Xbox 360, it's because they didn't want to call it Xbox 2 because that sounded behind the times in comparison to the competing console, which was PlayStation 3. So you'd say PlayStation 3 or Xbox 2. Oh, that's an older console. Maybe some stupid people would do that. I don't know. But yeah, with Xbox One, it kind of hits the reset button, and then they can call it Xbox 2. And I don't know. It's like you say, that's the job of overpaid marketing people in a room in California. Okay, so just to run down some of this stuff, just to close a news story. So Kinect does not need to be plugged in. So you have the option to completely turn the sensor off in your settings, which I know a lot of people have had. A lot of people in the mainstream who aren't into gaming know about this story that the US government's going to be spying on them through Kinect. So I know this is a privacy concern for many people. So that is good, I guess, that you can turn that off in the sensors in the settings. The Xbox One controller will be compatible with PC in 2014, so that's good. From the PC perspective, I guess. I use my Xbox 360 controller for everything on PC.
I do occasionally hear that there's some people out there that
why
don't you just play those games on an Xbox,
Yeah, that's true.
But if you don't have one, it's great to have the flexibility. Why not? If you want to play with the controller, you can.
I mean, I'm not saying it's evil.
Miami, or why not? And then the Xbox One controller has 40 different improvements. I'll run down some of the. Yes, it's pretty meaningless. The major ones are that it has haptic feedback, advanced rumble motors, and a more comfortable design. There's also a USB input on the back of the pad, which gives you the option of playing either wired or wireless. And also confirmed, this is big news, the pad has a wireless bandwidth of 20 times more than the Xbox 360 controller. So the latency has been reduced to milliseconds, and it has an impact in your game, according to Microsoft. It also has IR LEDs, so that the system knows, thanks to Kinect, who is holding the pad. There we go. All this interesting stuff. I was watching a program last night on I think BBC Two where they were talking about health-based apps, and when you can do it through an iPad, it will measure your heart rate through the palpitations in your face and in the skin. I thought that sounded like space-age technology, but apparently they can do it in iPad. And that's a feature of Xbox One as well, to monitor your heart rate.
Really?
Yeah,
well, that'll be in the game, won't it? You'll have like Zen games where you have to be calm at this point as the guards march past.
That'd be an interesting gameplay mechanic, actually, where you have to try and control your heartbeat.
That would be really cool.
That would actually be quite cool. But it sounded when I remember being in the Xbox One announcement and them saying, "Oh yeah, it will monitor your heart rate just by looking at you." I was like, "What? How is that? That's magic."
I like this idea that it knows who's holding the controller, because you just know some geeks are going to hack it so that when their friends are holding a controller,
mess it up. Like the controls will get messed up. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that would be good for parental controls. That you can play with your Xbox, but your kids aren't allowed to pick up the controller.
For a minute there, I thought you were going to say you could make it so like your kids have a disadvantage, so you can finally beat them.
Yeah.
Again, yeah, that's
a lot of potential there.
There is real potential. You have to pay for it, I'm sure, though. If they want to do that. Next news story is Swedish esports team win $1.4 million at Dota 2 video game prize. This is from the BBC website. Always interested to go on sort of BBC and Sky and have a look at what stories they're covering. So obviously this is making probably the money aspect of it is making a splash in the mainstream space. So this is Dota 2 players from two teams of 5 heroes have won. So it's a Swedish esports team have won $1.43 million. So that's £924,000 after emerging victorious at a Dota 2 tournament. It's the biggest single event prize awarded at a video game event. It was run in Seattle. Alliance, which is the Swedish team, only secured victory after destroying the stronghold of runners-up Ukraine-based Navi in the final game of a best-of-5 challenge. So the news comes months after the US began recognising gamers as pro athletes, according to the BBC. What do you think, Tim? You said you were into Dota 2.
Yeah, I mean, I'm into kind of just the esports scene in general.
I have to admit, I'll put my hand up. I saw a lot of reviews come out for Dota 2 last week. Has it just gone past the final release stage, or is it? Seems odd that it's
maybe. It's been in beta for ages.
Beta forever.
I mean, it's a beta which feels fully functional.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure about that, to be honest. But yeah, no, I think we kind of talked about this a bit earlier. If I don't have time to potentially play a game, because like Dota's got such a high skill level, but I played a little bit, but I felt like I couldn't really do everything that you can do in that game.
Sure.
So I started watching other people play it, and there's this one guy called Purge Gamers, who, if you're into Dota, have a watch. He's really good.
On YouTube.
He's on YouTube, that's right. And Total Biscuit, he does the odd little Dota cast, and I love it. I love watching these really kind of like skillful games played by people who are actually good at them. And yeah, because
rather than failing yourself.
Exactly. And I think it's awesome. I didn't know it was on the BBC website. I'm really happy that's hitting the kind of mainstream press, because personally, I actually find watching esports more interesting than watching a lot of real sports.
Right, okay.
I like a bit of rugby. I'm not a massive fan of football.
Sure.
But
nothing, this is the thing. Nothing blows up in rugby.
Right.
There's not like lasers and stuff. Whereas like you can have that in games.
Wizards.
Yeah.
I mean, normal sports are designed to be fun for the people playing them. But if you can invent an esport that's fun to actually look at, then obviously it's going to be better as a spectator.
And you'd agree that Dota is fun to look at as well?
I've never played it. Sorry, I'm such an old man.
No,
I played StarCraft 2. What do you think? No, I haven't actually. I played StarCraft. I haven't played
We'll come on to your games that you've been playing, but you mentioned you were a big Battlefield player.
I am a big Battlefield player, yeah.
So Dota 2 is now played, according to Valve, by 6 million people at least once a month. So it's relatively big. I mean, it's not as big as League of Legends, but it's still pretty big. I guess because League of Legends is free to play, whereas Dota is, I forget how much, it's £15, something like that. So yeah, that's that. That was happening in Seattle over the weekend. News in brief, including some stuff that I'm going to have to run through websites as I talk about, so excuse me if I'm not particularly polished. So news in brief, GTA Online reveal confirmed for August 15th. Grand Theft Auto Online will be revealed. Expect gameplay videos and previews on the day. The publisher tweeted out an image to accompany it, so if you have a look at the Rockstar Twitter feed. Guys, you excited about Grand Theft Auto 5? Yeah, interested? It's not coming to PC, so I can imagine the answer from your side. But
well, why not?
Well, actually, let's go on to the next news story, because Nvidia, my iPad will work, Nvidia's recent financials Video Gamer, the website, has picked up on something during the call which might suggest that GTA 5 is coming to PC this fall. NVIDIA's Senior Director of Investor Relations, Chris Evenden, said the PC market is evolving as entry-level laptops face pressure from tablets, blah, 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 blah. Blockbuster franchises such as Call of Duty Ghosts, Grand Theft Auto 5 and Assassin's Creed 4 coming this fall. So he mentioned them with other games that are confirmed for PC, but obviously Grand Theft Auto 5 is not confirmed at this stage. So if it comes to PC, you're interested. You like the GTA series?
I liked GTA 1 and GTA 2.
So the top-down ones?
Yeah, I did. I did. I have to admit...
and there was a London one as well, wasn't there?
There was, but apparently it's an artist's impression of London who's never actually been to London.
Very much.
And as a old Londoner, I think that might offend me quite massively. But I haven't really spent any great amount of time playing the newer ones.
The newer ones, I would say. So, 3D
but they do sound like the sort of game that I should spend time on. I just don't have enough time.
Yeah, it's one of those games where obviously it's an action adventure game. To put, if you're going to put it in a genre, but I've not played 5, but it looks to follow that sort of pattern of games that's so much love that's lavished on it. I mean, so much. I mean, as a creative endeavour, it's incredible.
Well, I like the idea of like an open world game where you're kind of doing that stuff, but when I don't like the idea that I'm, some disillusioned, gruff kind of drug dealing. I think, but I'm not.
Sure.
And I don't want to play that role. I want to be the good guy.
Well, I think it's less about you're not that, but you don't want to play as that.
Yeah, it's
it
just
surprises me that you're not some multi-million drug dealing.
My games don't really sell. That's.
I think in this game, there's one of them. I think one of them's a psychopath. One of them is. I'm trying to remember their names now. One of them's a psychopath, one's a businessman, and one of them's a sort of up-and-coming criminal of some description.
It's like playing to 13-year-old boys' fantasies.
Yeah, it is.
It is ridiculous because it's loads of like 30 and 40-year-old guys will be playing this game, thinking they're being a bit rebellious, after a day at the office. I don't know.
What would your ideal protagonist be in a Grand Theft Auto or an open world game? If that description.
I don't know. I just. I think I'd like to play games about mowing the lawn and paying off your mortgage.
Those games exist. I don't know if there is.
I know I've made
mowing
one.
Simulator. There's definitely surgeon simulator.
Tractor simulator. There's a bus simulator.
Farming simulator. You may jest. Farming simulator. I bought it. I was drunk when I bought it, and it's rubbish. But it's incredibly successful commercial game. Farming simulator.
Crucially, very profitable.
Yes.
They don't take a lot to.
Yeah, it's not got the same. It's not got the Frostbite engine in.
No, they're not like accurately modelled snowflakes.
No, it's bad.
There's a fantastic video that's overlaid. It's quite old now, but it's dubbed. It's got dubstep on the top or drum and bass over the top, and it's just that farming game. I'll send you a link to it.
With the guy doing the field set out.
Yeah,
yeah, it's genius.
So that's coming to PC perhaps in the fall. Layoffs over at Crystal Dynamics. Not a massive amount. 12 people becoming redundant as we rescope the project, according to a statement from Crystal Dynamics. Tomb Raider sequel is still on track, still coming for next gen, as was confirmed by Square Enix CEO Phil Rogers. Don't think there's much we can add to that. Iwata says that Wii U's price isn't the problem. This is from Joystick and CVG. While the Wii U hasn't sold particularly well, Nintendo's just moved 160,000 units in the last three months in Q1. But Iwata says if the price is actually an issue with Wii U, then there is some contradiction between the current sales balance between basic and premium versions of the Wii U, Iwata told CVG. The basic version should have sold a lot, but the fact of the matter is people are buying more of the premium version, so the issue is not there. It's not down to price, he says. Iwata cited the disparity in sales between deluxe and basic Wii U models in January when noting that the system was selling steadily and stated plans in June to regain the system's momentum through the end of the year before establishing successful third-party Wii U software titles. Now, you guys don't have Wii U's. I mean, does it hold... You mentioned you had a Wii, Cliff. Was it, any attraction to the Wii U at all? It seems to be floundering. It's not doing well.
Yeah, I could understand why people were just, saying, yeah... the Wii was an interesting and different idea, and then Kinect, for me, kind of does what that used to do. Frankly,
but crucially, it doesn't have the Nintendo games. I mean, that's the...
Oh, I don't care. And neither do... Like when I was sort of saying that, it's a console for people in retirement homes, I'm only kind of, by which I mean people my age.
Well, I mean,
I don't care whether or not I'm Mario. I just want to flail my arms about a bit and pretend I'm skiing.
Right,
and if I can do, and if you can do that now, much better with a Kinect, then why bother with Nintendo?
Absolutely. I mean, it said my parents the Wii is the only console they've ever bought. So it's crucially the Wii had that. It sold to the Nintendo hardcore, but its true success was appealing to people that didn't play games. So Wii U just isn't doing that.
I think with the Wii, you're sort of saying here is some amazing new experience, and you're selling it to people who are not normally gamers. And that's a sales proposition. Whereas now you're saying, and here's the improved version. And to us as like sort of geeks that go, oh, there's a new version of X, let's get it. We don't understand that to a lot of people, they're like, well, is it that much better than the Wii? I've got
I've got a Wii. That's
the
what
answer
they'll be
is
thinking.
It's not really.
Not that much compared with like not having one and having one.
Sure.
So why bother?
Don't make it compelling. Sorry, next news. Sorry, Tim, did you have something to say on that?
Well, I kind of wanted to call him up a little bit on this. Was the premium version selling more than the basic version, so that means it's not too expensive. I mean, I'm kind of just nitpicking here, but that might not necessarily be the case. It might just be that it's kind of as Cliff's saying, it's only actually it's only an attractive proposition to kind of the hardcore Nintendo fans, and they're obviously going to buy the premium version. So I think it is perhaps selling. Maybe that. I mean, the Wii was incredibly cheap. The original Wii came out.
It was £180 for a long time. It held that price for a long time.
And I just think that's how they maybe hit that casual market, as well as also the fact that it was really novel. And so maybe the price is an issue. But just nitpicking.
Absolutely. No, it makes sense. It makes sense. A successful news story here is that Minecraft even has sold 8 million on Xbox Live Arcade, and the 360 edition is at the top of the UK charts yet again this week. Which is crazy. The feat comes as the Xbox 360 version of Minecraft prepares for Title Update 12. Its full changelog is now available if you want to check it out. Did you guys play Minecraft? Kind of any love for Minecraft at all?
I played it a huge long time ago.
When it first came out?
Very, very early version of it. And I thought it was cool. Like, I've never actually played the game, if that makes any sense. I've just played on like a sort of server with everything unlocked and just built stuff.
Yeah.
And that was quite fun, I built myself a little castle and everything. But I don't see why people... It's mostly kids, isn't it?
It is. It's a very big family market, especially on Xbox, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but apparently you can play 2 players, is that right, at the same time on Xbox?
Xbox you can play up to 4 player split screen, I think.
I can imagine that's quite fun. I quite like that whole family thing, building stuff together. I'm a fan of kind of multiplayer games generally.
Yeah, it's a great game for families. It's really, really good.
I'd like to do a quick kind of shout out for another Mojang title. Actually, I saw this recently.
They need some PR. You want to mention them.
I'm just trying to tag along. I'm just tagging on. Look, hey, I like this too.
So have you played Scroll? It's in beta, isn't it?
I've actually not played it. I was so bad. I just watched Let's Plays. I just think it looks awesome. I'm going to get a copy of it at some point when I get a weekend to delve into it.
It's that difficult second album for Notch, really, isn't it? It's nothing like Minecraft.
It's nothing like it. Yeah. It's right more up my street than Minecraft. That's the funny thing is I never really played Minecraft.
I might be wrong. I believe it's gone into some sort of beta, so you can check it out. Cool. A couple of news stories that have just come in. Like I say, I was alerted by Andy from Happy Nation that Thomas Was Alone the creator of Thomas Was Alone, Mike Biffle, who was on the second episode of my show, has unveiled his new game, Volume. Just looking at VG247, they've got the first details, and Biffle has been working on the game for the past 7 months, hoping to launch in 2014. It's a top-down sneaking sim, and it's, according to VG247, does smack of Hideo Kojima's series, which is Metal Gear Solid. Comes with the cones of vision, flattening against walls, and making sounds to distract robotic guards. You guys, when you saw the video, compared it to
Frozen
Sides, most
it's got a similar kind of feel from the top down, kind of blocky kind of levels.
Bright colours, and I'm just looking at the screens at the moment. Are you guys excited for this? Are you a fan of Thomas Was Alone?
Yeah, absolutely, and I certainly want to be following its development. I mean, I've been like, I follow Mike on Twitter, and Project 2. I mean, he's good at kind of good
at building the buzz.
And so I was excited to hear about this today.
So if you want to find out more about it, it's going to be the video is available, and it's going to be shown off at Eurogamer Expo next month and at Game City in Nottingham in October. Final news story, and this is for me and Cliff. This one, I think. Battlefield 4 new mode and map will be revealed at Gamescom. Do you guys go to Gamescom? Are you interested in Gamescom?
This is this German thing.
It is a
isn't
German thing. It's
I'm
a big German
so
show.
unhip.
Don't worry. It's the biggest show in the world technically, but it's just because there are so many public descend on it. I forget the exact numbers, like 200, 250,000.
I keep getting emails from people, like industry people saying,
that.
"Hey, let's do drinks at Gamescom.
Let's have lunch.
What day are you going to be there?" And I'm replying, "I'm not going." And they sort of think,
"How can you not be there?"
Yeah, I went to GDC for the first time this year. That's that's big
GDC
for me.
in San Francisco.
Yeah.
How do you find it?
Yeah, I thought it was quite interesting. I'd never been, and I realised that for being in the industry 100 years and never going is embarrassing. So
just to clarify, it's not quite 100 years.
No, it's I can't even do the math.
Can't even do that.
It's a long time.
So GDC's a lot of fun. There is a GDC Europe track at Gamescom actually next week, which I'll try and make it out to do a little bit of. New mode and map will be revealed at Gamescom. So this will kick off Tuesday, August 20th, and it will be at EA's pre-Gamescom conference. So you can catch it live. There'll be a live stream on EA's site. You excited? You play a lot of Battlefield.
I do play an enormous amount. Well, I've got back into EVE Online lately, and since getting back into EVE Online, I've spent my evenings staring at asteroids rather than shooting people in the face with guns.
So you kind of go in and out of EVE basically.
Well, I've just I mean, I started playing it God knows how many years ago, and I've sort of been off it for a few years. So addictive. It is.
You cancelled your subscription, surely, or did you just let it run?
You can't. Well, you cancel your subscription, but they will not delete your character. And you can go back 5 years later and they go, "Oh, you want to reactivate your character? Your ship's still here," which is brilliant because they send you like an email once a year saying your ship is still parked in base such and such.
Here it is, getting mould on it.
Yeah, and you're sort of thinking, maybe I should be playing. So it's quite cunning.
Well,
until then, I played about 150 hours of Battlefield 3, which is a lot for me.
That's a lot, yeah. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
We'll talk about games we're playing in the next section. But if you want to find out more about these news stories, I'll put a link to the show notes. I also create a PDF and embed them in my podcast player. I need to check out whether that's actually working or not. But if you want to find out more about these news stories, they're available in the running order. Okay, time to talk to my guests about what they've been up to at the moment, what's on their radar, what else might be of interest. Can be anything, not just gaming related. So Cliff, we were talking about Battlefield. 150 hours. Have you gotten everything unlocked at this stage?
No, not vaguely. And I'm not even like the top rank or anything.
Well, that's why. If you were top rank, you probably have everything unlocked.
Well, I don't know how it works. It's so flipping complicated. There's awards and unlocks and special things.
It's interesting you should say that because I play a lot of that game as well, and I find it complicated. There's a lot of unlocks and lots of.
Have you played Company of Heroes 2?
I played the first level of Company of Heroes 2.
So have you seen like the achievement screen at the end of it? It's ridiculous. It looks like the control panel of Space Shuttle. There is so much.
So many unlocks
and unlock different camouflages and it's so complicated that I just look at it and I think,
click to the next screen.
Yeah, I've already got a job, but my second full-time job of just managing your achievements and stuff is just crazy.
How is Company of Heroes 2? You enjoying it? I never got into the first game, I have to admit. I wasn't a PC gamer at that time, so that's why.
Oh, I really did like the first game. It's pretty similar, to be honest. The sound effects are much better.
It doesn't feel like it sort of made that same sort of impact.
No. Well, they haven't changed.
Days,
but I think they rather sensibly haven't changed that much. They fixed a few little kind of minor things that you never realised were a problem until they fixed them, and now they're pretty good. But it does feel a little bit rushed, and the performance of it isn't that good. You do need
I noticed that actually.
PC.
Yeah, I noticed that on a decent PC I was playing on.
Yeah, because I still play the original with my brother over the internet on Sundays, Sunday afternoons. If we're both free. And so if there's not much new in the new one, do you know it wasn't about the graphics, was it? So
actually, no, they did. From a journalist perspective, they did push the graphics at the time, and when I sort of went to a preview event for Company of Heroes 2, they did say it was going to be the most beautiful looking strategy game.
It does look pretty nice, and there's blizzards, and the blizzards are done quite well. But I was such a hardcore Company of Heroes player that if they said it's exactly the same engine and exactly the same gameplay, but now there's Russian tanks, I'd have bought it.
You'd have done it.
So
25 quid.
Yeah, frankly,
Yeah.
because if you think the amount of hours, I mean, like
Oh,
Battlefield 3, however much it is, 40 quid and a few expansions, call it 60 quid, I don't care. It's still like 30 pence an hour.
Yeah.
I'm going to the theatre tonight and it's more than 30 pence an hour.
It is.
Yes.
It's a lot more than that. Yeah.
So, but if you look at it like that, money well spent on both games, I think.
So if you enjoy it, I mean, obviously you enjoy it playing 150 hours of it. But
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in the old days, back when I was young, if you playing Space Invaders at 10p a time.
Yeah, that was an expensive hobby.
Yeah. Well, now we call that microtransactions.
Exactly. So you've been playing that recently. I mean, is that the most recent game you've been playing, called Company of Heroes? And
well, I've got back into Eve, but I have played quite a few different things. I played a bit of Surgeon Simulator, which I'm most amused by. I got
this is a UK developer. It's Bosser, I think, that did it.
Is it UK?
I think it is, yeah. And you control one hand with the mouse. I don't think we talked about it on the show. One hand with the mouse, and then the other hand with the WAS and D keys, isn't it? Pretty much.
No, you've only got one hand.
Oh, that's right.
You've only got one hand. So you've got the mouse moving the hand, and then you're controlling individual fingers with
that's
the other
one.
hand.
Yes, that's right.
Which is absolutely impossible. And I love the fact that
ridiculous.
right next to this poor guy who you're going to take his lungs out.
Stomach's open or whatever. Yeah.
They've placed bottles and cans of Coke on the desk next to it specifically, and you're wearing a watch, which always comes undone.
Gets in there
at the most inopportune moment.
Have you actually finished a procedure on that?
Yeah, man.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
I got too frustrated.
I've done the first two, but I like the fact that there's no tutorial at all.
Right, you just straight into it. Yeah, absolutely.
So you're grabbing organs and just pulling at them to see if they come out.
It's incredible.
It's a very stupid idea, but it's very entertaining.
Have you seen it, Tim?
I've seen it, yeah. I was at E2, the alternative kind of gaming conference around the same time as E3 earlier this year, actually demoing my game, and they were right next to me. The guy is demoing Surgeon Simulator, so I watched a lot of people play, a lot of frustrated gamers. It just looks difficult.
It's incredibly frustrating, but there is something compelling and addictive about that.
The developers can't play it either. They admit that it's far too ridiculous. And then there's been a spin-off game where you're you've got a robot arm and you're trying to make a cup of tea.
It's one of those things, though, isn't it? It just seemed to capture the imagination of a lot of people when it was released, just because it's out there. It's not like everything else.
Well, when I was at Res, I was showing off Democracy 3 and Metro at Res, and there were these booths for. Whatever latest Total War game is.
Total War
46 or something. And they had hundreds of booths and huge things and everything. And then Surgeon Simulator was next to them, and all of the Total War booths were empty, and crowds around Surgeon Simulator, which cost nothing to make.
Yeah, I think it sells for quite cheap. It's about £7, something like that. I think
something like that. Yeah, I got it on Steam. Yeah.
What about you, Tim? What are you playing at the moment? What's on your radar?
Well, I got on Saturday. I purchased Rogue Legacy.
Yes, you said actually over lunch. Yeah. So
this is, if you've not heard of it, it's a kind of Metroid, kind of Castlevania type game, but with this roguelike layer. And just in case anyone's not familiar with the whole roguelike thing, what that basically means, the normal things that you have in a roguelike is permadeath. So if you die, you can't reload your save. There's normally a certain amount of randomness in it, so each time you play it's different, because otherwise it'd be really boring playing the same linear game over and over and over again. And there's normally some kind of persistency when between your deaths. And so this game has all of those things. So it's imagine kind of like Castlevania, but you keep dying, and then every time you die, you can use all the gold you've collected in this run through this castle to buff your stats. And so each time you play, you're getting a little bit better. And it's great for me, because I'm not very good at kind of platformers or kind of these sort of twitchy games. But because you're always making progress, you keep enjoying it. And it's really good fun.
Actually, I'm looking at just to pull up any other news stories and see what's out this week. Surgeon Simulator 2013, the happy viral accident is the top story on VG247. So yeah, that game is still is developed in the UK by Bosser Studios. So yeah, there we go. Sorry to interrupt you there, Tim.
That's all right.
So that's worth checking out, and that's on PC.
That's right, absolutely. I've been playing a few other little ones. I mean, one of the ones it's actually more like a website that I'm liking at the moment is GOG. Have you guys heard of GOG?
Good Old Games, yeah.
Yeah.
I've just signed a game with them, actually.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Which game?
This, Democracy 3.
Oh, serious? That's great. Is it coming kind of at the same time on Steam and on?
Yeah. They don't do sort of pre-orders. So when it's live on Steam, they're very insistent on this. Actually, the nanosecond it's live on Steam, it has to be live on GOG.
Why do they not do pre-orders?
I just don't think that they're set up to do it. Just
okay,
like systems-wise, I don't think they're not against it or anything.
Yeah, Good Old Games was it's changed a little bit because, as the name suggests, it was Good Old Games that you might not be able to get. The only way you might be able to play them is through an emulator or something.
Sure.
So they kind of released those, and the thing was they'd be cheap and they'd be competitively priced. No, cheap's a bad word sometimes. And they were DRM free.
Yeah, that's the thing that they're still very keen on.
It's cool, I got a copy of Dungeon Keeper 2, and I was playing that like a month ago, and it was just
I remember the FMV sequences in that game were really impressive at the time, but now they look really basic.
It's true.
Yeah.
I've got to admit, I was a little bit disappointed with Dungeon Keeper 2. Sorry, I shouldn't be a bit mean, but it was that nostalgia for the first. I played the first 5 levels and I was loving it.
Don't you think that happens a lot though? That like when I see Age of Empires 2, I think I spent so much time doing that. I'm going to get that, and then you look at screenshots and think, really, did it look that bad?
Yeah. Nostalgia's very powerful. It's. I mean, there are a couple of occasions, but I went back to Jet Set Radio, which I'm a big fan of, and recently, and that I had a fond memory of it. It wasn't really that much fun to play. I'm sorry, Tim. I keep interrupting you with different stuff.
It's great.
So you've been playing.
So I played a bit of Dungeon Keeper 2. I kind of wanted to just mention Good Old Games or GOG or whatever it's meant to be called, because I only came across it recently and I just think it's great.
Yeah.
I love that they're bringing old games which don't run, like you say, maybe aren't compatible on Windows 7 or on the new versions of Mac, and they're DRM free, so you just download your exe and then your .exe file and you just take it wherever you want to go.
I'm conflicted with that because I like Steam because it brings everything together, but I'd prefer the idea of DRM free. It's just It's
the thing is, if you just want an exe, then a lot of time you can go. I mean, that's what I do when I sell Games Direct or through the Humble widget or whatever.
Sure.
Then you get an exe. So GOG are just like sort of sitting there in between you and the developer. Most of the time, the developer doesn't want to.
Yeah, maybe for the old games, it might be a bit more. Because maybe the developers they don't have their website.
For that sort of thing, yeah.
But sure, I can see, with your game, I know you can go just straight to your website and...
Come to my site and buy my games.
That's the preferable way for you, isn't it? Cause
for me, because we get all the money.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I bought Rogue Legacy direct from the guys, because, why not? It was actually cheaper, and they get all the money, I don't know.
I definitely would go out of my way to go, and if there's an option to just go straight to the developer.
Well, the thing is, when it's a small developer, people forget, because it's not normally an option, that they say, what if I lose my download link? I think, well, just email me and I'll send you another one.
Yeah.
And they kind of don't believe that, but we do it. And I always say to them, look, I've been around longer than Steam. So, if you want to actually look at things historically, I'm more reliable.
Right. It's a fair argument. Steam could be gone tomorrow.
Yeah. That doesn't work on anyone.
No, I can understand that. Anything else, Tim, that you're looking forward to at the moment?
I've got this big list. I'll rattle through them.
You said Ouya Towerfall. That is a great multiplayer game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've only had one chance to play it, but I'm desperate to have another go, actually. And
it's just on Ouya at the moment. It's coming to PC and maybe even PlayStation.
Is it? Well, that'd be. I think it's good for the TV experience because it's a shared screen experience. That's just perfect. That's perfect for console, basically. Yeah.
I'm at the stage where I just assume everything will come out on PC now. It really is. It just is the way. There's relatively few things like Journey, maybe, and a few other sort of first-party titles that don't.
But no, that's it, really.
So, anything else from your side, Cliff? Anything that's...
I don't have time to play games.
That time to play. You're in kind of crunch time, aren't you? Or the game's done. It's through approval and all the rest of it for Steam, whatever else happens.
Well, Democracy 3 I'm still balancing, so tomorrow evening and then the day after I'm doing Australia is what I should be balancing Australia.
You're balancing all of
Australia, and then need to do some sort of last minute QA for Red Shirt. And then what
does balancing Australia mean?
Well, because it's a politics game, and you've got all these different variables. So
I thought you meant doing a special difficulty level for Australia because they were somehow different. To the rest
no, they are. They are because Australia has a different number of farmers to Britain and a different.
Sure. I know what you mean.
I'm not physically holding
them up.
But yeah, because the trouble is I have one complicated simulation and it's supposed to simulate all these different countries, but Germany and France are not the same.
Right.
Australia and America are not the same. Gun crime is not the same in all these countries. So you have to, every time I change something, I have to go through all these countries and play it and check that that's not just completely mental in this country.
Right.
So I'm on the final pass of doing that again.
And you have to do all that yourself. You don't have any sort of external testers? Or?
Well, I'm doing that all myself, and then I'm going to take pre-orders and put it into beta, and I'm sure I'll get loads of Australians saying you're completely wrong.
Nice.
So that will go on for however long it goes on until a release.
Have a look at that because it's going to be out in. Is there a date for it? Is it 2030 or something?
For Democracy 3, it's going to be the end of this month.
End of August.
20 something.
20 something.
20 something. Yeah. It's up to me because I'm the platform owner.
I'm going to talk about Splinter Cell Blacklist. I think that the game's out next Friday, 25th, 26th, I think. And I've been reviewing it for Stuff magazine. Are you guys fans of the Splinter Cell series at all?
I can't get past the head thing.
The head thing is in there still.
Yeah,
the three green lights.
It'll always be in there.
Yeah,
you know,
it's the trademark, isn't it? It's the.
Yeah, I mean, this used to be just a console game, didn't it?
God, it started out as an Xbox 360. Sorry, an Xbox original Xbox exclusive. Yeah. This is the 7th game in the series. Sometimes you have to, like with Tomb Raider as well, which I think the most recent Tomb Raider was like the 7th game. You have to sort of be like, have there really been 7 games in that series? I
have to admit, it's a game that I've discounted because I've always just thought of it as a console game.
Yeah. I think every version has been released on PC. In fact, I'm sure of it.
Interesting. I have to admit,
but it is a console game probably. I think.
What did you play it?
Xbox.
You did
I played on Xbox. Yeah. It's interesting for me. So I'm hoping that the review's going to be live at this stage. I'm going to talk about it. And if not, I'll have to edit it out of this podcast. I gave it 4 stars because it's a competently made game. But for me, I enjoyed it while I was playing it, but it's immediately forgettable because it steals so many other ideas from other games. It's like I said before, the last game in the series, Conviction, was too action orientated, so they've gone back to the stealth, which makes the game better. But the story is just absolutely cliche-ridden nonsense that you've seen millions of times before. If you play Mass Effect, it steals the Normandy setup from. So you have to go and talk to your crew now, and then look at the big map to choose your missions and upgrade your ship and do all that sort of stuff. And then there's first-person shooter sections, which remind you of Call of Duty and all those. You can't do a military game these days without having, the one where it's the infrared camera and you're in the air and you're firing down the AC-130 guns. And I actually really enjoy it. This makes it sound like I didn't enjoy it. It's a competently made game, but it's one of those games that unfortunately feels as though it's made by committee and it's.
Well, don't you think it sounds to me like you're describing a game that is made by kind of like people who've only ever played video games?
Yes.
And they might have seen a Tom Clancy movie remake. Mm-hmm. Aliens and Lord of the Rings, these are the only films that the game developers have ever seen. Right. And they've never done anything else in their lives at all. So all the games are just like rehashes of other games.
Yeah, I think there's something to write on this, maybe a blog or a feature on my own website, but it's one of those games that's competently made, very fun. Mechanically, it works, but you can play this game as a stealth game if you want to, and I really enjoyed it because this aspect of it at least, when you mess up, you're not punished for it. In the early Splinter Cell games, you'd go through sections, and if you killed a few guards and then for whatever reason made a mistake and then alerted one of the other guys, it was you were dead. You were shot dead immediately. In this, there's a little bit more freedom to if you make a mistake, you can get out of it relatively easy. Some really memorable missions. I won't spoil one of the ones that's really good towards the end of the game, but you have to break out of one of the world's most famous prisons. So some really good ideas in there. It's just a lot. Maybe it's my frame of mind or the mood that I'm in at the moment, where I've just seen it a lot before, and it's just not particularly exciting.
See,
really.
What I'm fascinated to know is if you're breaking out of some prison, at some point you must get captured, and then you must escape, and somehow you're going to get that little hat with your little 3 green lights on back, aren't you?
You do, yes, you do. Yeah, you get it.
What are the chances?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly how it goes down. That's exactly how it goes down.
Into the story.
And I haven't even played the game.
It's woven into the story. It's an interesting one. I was just emailing the guys and stuff to clarify a point that I made. It's one of those games where you're given so much exposition and so much backstory about characters and stuff that you actually forget because you zone out because you're like trying to remember the various characters. You forget why you in Philadelphia or why are you in Iran. Like you're doing these cool missions, but you lose track of who's who's traced what to where and the backstory of the various characters.
This is like a lot of MMO games where you get a really long description of a quest and it's basically blah blah blah, kill 6 rats.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very much the same vein. But I'm getting less and less willing to put up with kind of boring, cliche-ridden stories, because there's some really good stories out there in games, and this is just one of those things you've seen a million times before. Anyway, all that said, I gave it 4 stars because if you're a fan of that game, that series, it's better than Conviction, and it's probably one of the best games in that series. It's just from a personal level, it's difficult to get excited about Blacklist. It might just be the fact that it's just at that point where I've moved over to PC a bit more, and there's always anticipation about new stuff and new.
You're getting older and more mature.
I'm getting older and more mature. It's a combination of things. I would recommend it. I enjoyed it for the 8 hours that I played it. I recommend it if you're a fan of Splinter Cell series. But I think there's more exciting games coming out at the moment, and it's releasing at the week when Disney Infinity, The Wonderful 101, which I really want to play on Wii U. What else is coming out that day? Saints Row 4 is coming out that day. It's incredibly busy. The Bureau, XCOM Declassified. It's just, I don't know how this happens, but I mean, your game's coming out around the same time. But
yeah, that was the big story.
That's the big one, obviously. But I can't understand why they just didn't release it this week when there's nothing out. There's nothing out, and then 5 games, and then 5 games all in 1 week. Anyway, that's Splinter Cell Blacklist. It'll be reviewed on stuff, and that's my review. Elsewhere this week, there are a couple of other games coming out. DuckTales Remastered. A lot of DuckTales fans. I didn't realise this. Anyone fan? You're probably not. Never. There's a lot of love for DuckTales in the games reviewing community. Anyway, I think the general feeling for this one is that it doesn't live up to the previous DuckTales. Payday 2, which we talked about, that got an 8. I'm looking at VG247. I got an 8 from Eurogamer, and generally seems to have settled around that score from many other sites. What else is coming out? Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons came out in between this podcast and the last one. A lot of love for this game. It looks really, really nice. I don't know if you've seen it at all. Basically, it's a game, I think, from the team that made Riddick, Starbreeze, I think, perhaps some connection to it. But basically, you control 2 brothers, and you do it. One brother is on one of the analog sticks, and another brother is on the other analog stick. So you're not looking interested, Cliff.
Well, no, it just sounds really complicated.
It sounds like rubbing your stomach and patting your head, basically.
It's a game for drummers.
It's got an 85 on Metacritic. A lot of people are really loving this game. It is coming to PC later this year.
I'm excited by that sort of thing. I mean, I've already kind of said a few times how much I like multiplayer games in this podcast, and there's this
yes,
guy.
You can play multiplayer as well.
Okay, so there's actually a guy kind of called Alistair Aitchison, and he's made a couple of games on iPad.
Yeah.
Which Greedy Bankers and Slamjet Stadium, and they're these games that really focus on shared screen multiplayer.
Yeah.
So it's all about getting in each other's space and the kind of the physical kind of interaction between players, as well as just the one that goes on the screen. And I just think it's a really interesting new genre that's not really done a lot with. And this sounds like it's similar.
Yes, yeah. I've not played it myself, but it's a lot of people have said it's really, really good and worth checking out. On Xbox 360 at the moment only. So there's a news story here as well on VG247 that I've just spotted just before we wrap up the show. That Dragon, Cancer, is coming exclusively to Ouya in 2014. I played this at the Develop Conference in July, so last month. It's a very interesting game, which I mentioned on the podcast before, but basically it's a dad whose son was diagnosed with terminal cancer, kind of expressing the process that he went through in a game. Now, it's obviously a very deep, very serious game, very emotionally charged, but I thought it was worth mentioning because it's coming to Ouya in 2014, exclusively, which is kind of crazy. So that's the story on VG247. Okay, guys, thanks so much for joining me on the show. That's pretty much it for this episode. Where can we find out more of your work, stalk you online if we want to?
www.positech.co.uk. Or Cliffski. I'm
Cliffski. Just Google Cliffski if you want to find out more about Cliff's games. And what about yourself?
So you can find me at Twice Circled or at www.ionage.co.uk if you want to check out my game.
Good stuff. Guys, it's been a real pleasure. Thanks for joining me. If you've got any feedback, please send it to podcast@guycocker.com. Remember, email me on the same address if you want to enter that competition to win Payday 2. Next week, I'll be at Gamescom in Cologne for a special episode of the show. Not quite sure yet how that's going to come together, but keep an eye on twitter.com/guycocker for more updates, or subscribe in iTunes to have the shows delivered to you as soon as they're available. Thanks very much for listening, and I'll see you next week.